Hi, I'm Ken Rolla of Fresh and Alive, and people are always asking me my recommendation for juicers. And if you go to YouTube, you can see tons of juicer reviews and analysis. And the thing that I see when I go and look at a lot of these is that these reviews are always by people selling juicers, and they get a brand new spanking juicer and they pull it out, and they run some stuff through it, and they go, look, it juices great, go buy it. And in my experience, what I've seen is that when a juicer gets older, that's when you really know whether it's a good juicer or not. And so years ago when I was looking around for juicers and I was asking various people and companies that sold juicers, you know, what was the best juicer, and basically I couldn't get a straight answer. So I spent $3,000, I bought every decent juicer on the market, I borrowed a whole bunch of others, and I tested juicers side by side to find out what really did juice the best. And this was a few years ago. And weeded through quite a lot of them, because what I found was that a lot of the juicers that were expensive actually didn't juice as well as less expensive juicers from the same companies. So long story short, after spending a bunch of money and figuring all that stuff out, for quite a few years my favorite juicer was the SoloStar 2. Reason being that if you're really going to be juicing day in and day out, it's not just about how fast the juicer juices, that's a part of it, but it's also about how hard is it to clean, how well is it going to hold up, and how quickly will it juice. Because if it takes a long time to juice, you're not going to be doing it every day. And so a lot of people will buy these department store juicers, centrifugal juicers, or better quality juicers like the Omega Mega Mouth juicer, what are called centrifugal juicers. Those juicers have a big basket-like screen. They're very high speed. You run produce through them, and they do a very good job of juicing quickly, but they don't juice things like greens. And greens, if you're going to be doing a raw and living foods diet, greens are a major staple of any juicing program. One of the big mistakes that I see people make when they get into juicing is that they like juicing a lot of sweet stuff. And so they're basically sugar addicts that trade one form of sugar for another, and they wind up juicing fruits and things like carrots and beets that are very high in sugar. And the problem with that is that feeds parasites, molds, fungus, pathogenic bacteria, yeasts like Candida, that overgrow in the digestive tract, and most Americans have this going on. In fact, most people in the civilized world these days have this going on. And so juicing fruit is not something that you're wanting to be doing every day. So you need a juicer that can juice greens well, that can produce green drinks well, that can produce them quickly, and not be a nightmare to clean. And so fortunately, just in the past couple of years, there's a juicer that's come out that has really fit the bill for all of that. We're going to talk about that. But for a long, long time, the SoloStar 2 by Tribest was one of my favorite juicers. I tested it against the Green Star and the Green Life and a lot of others, the Kempo juicers, all of the twin gear juicers, which are just juicers that have two gears that mesh together and masticate and crush the juice out. They work well, but they're a nightmare to clean. They have really big screens, and a lot of times you have more than one screen that you have to change, and there's a lot of pieces and parts that have to be cleaned. They're just a real mess to clean up, and they're a lot to put together and to take apart. So I've had those kinds of juicers. I had a Green Star juicer for many years, and I really liked it because it did a good job. But then Tribest came out with the SoloStar 2, which I'll show you in a moment. I'm going to assemble it so you can see what it looks like assembled. And the SoloStar 2 did an even better job than the Green Star, and it was easier to assemble and clean and take apart. And so that was a big improvement. And so for many years I used that juicer. Now understand, I've also used other single auger juicers like the Omega 8000 series, the 8002 years ago, and then the 8003 and 8004 and 5 and 6 now. And basically they're all the same juicer of the 8000 series. They just have different color schemes. And I actually found the Omega juicers, the 8000 series, they worked okay. They didn't get as much juice out as the SoloStar, and their motors tended to bog down much easier than the SoloStar. So I stopped recommending the Omega juicer, and pretty much for anything under $1,000, it was the TriBest SolarStar 2. So first of all, let me show you what that thing looks like assembled, because we still sell it for people that don't have the budget for higher priced juicers. And basically it's a single auger juicer. You've got a body, a housing, you've got one auger like a big sausage grinder. You slide them in together, you have a juicing screen, and it's pretty large compared to older versions, but this one works very well. It doesn't crack like previous versions of the SolarStar. And then you've got an end cap that slides on, and then a nozzle. And typically for juicing, all I ever use is the nozzle with the smaller hole on it. And it just all goes together like so. Put it all together, and then this is a juicing blank if you just want to make pulp out of nuts or seeds or something where you just want to mash it up and make it into a pate or a meal. You use a juicing blank, but normally I'm not doing that with my juicer. It just slides onto the body of the juicer, and this ring locks tight onto it. Let's see what direction. I'm not used to doing this backwards. Okay, there we go. And then it has a hopper that goes on there. Now, this juicer works great, and in my tests I found that it gets about 25% more juice out than other juicers that are comparable to it. And when I say comparable, I mean anything under $500. It does better than the Green Star, made by the same company. It does better than the Kempo juicer. It does better than the Hippocrates juicer. It does better than the Omega 8000 series. And you can tell because you get a drier pulp. So for many years I really liked this juicer until Omega and Hurom came out with the slow juicer, or as Omega calls it, the Omega Vert 330. And now they've got the 330 HD. So originally when I bought this juicer, for a couple of months I was really happy with it. And it juiced great. And then it started having problems. The screen started cracking. And I'll show you what that looks like. That screen started cracking, particularly when you're running wheatgrass and greens through it. And as I mentioned, you want to be juicing greens, you want to be doing green drinks as opposed to sweet drinks and fruit drinks and soft stuff all the time. And so most juicers either can't handle greens, or in the case of this juicer, the screen started cracking. And so what started out as a great juicer, it would also clog from time to time, and that was one thing I've had an issue with some juicers. The SolarStar does a really good job of not clogging when you run greens and soft produce through. That's one of the things I really like about this juicer. It will juice anything. It will juice wheatgrass, it will juice greens, it will juice soft stuff like tomatoes or cucumbers or anything. It just does a really nice job on everything. And you can make nut pates, that kind of stuff. So it does everything, and that's one of the reasons why I liked it. For an under $250 juicer, this thing works really well for all of that. The only caveat is that it's slow, because it's a slow RPM juicer and it has a small opening on its feed chute. And that means that you've got to cut your produce up quite a bit to get it in there. For example, if you're putting a cucumber through there, you've got to cut it up into 4 quarters to get it down through that chute. So for many years I was used to spending half an hour, 45 minutes to do juice for my wife and I, and that's about 24 ounces of juice per person. So the Omega and the Hurom come out. They've got this new single auger design, but instead of having a long skinny auger, it's got a short fat auger that grabs big chunks of stuff. And I'm going to show you this in just a moment. We're going to do some juicing. And this juicer worked great for a few months, starts cracking, and so I thought, well, I was going to do some juice reviews, and I thought, well, I'm not going to be able to give this one a good review. So I didn't get around to filming a review, and I'm glad I didn't, because in the meantime, Omega came out with a new improved HD version of this juicer. And what they did was they made the opening on the part where the pulp comes out, the chute where the pulp comes out, they made that a little bit bigger, and they made the juicing screen where the juice comes through and the pulp comes through, they made that a little bit larger, and that stopped the clogging and it stopped the cracking. And they also made the screen out of a denser, harder material that doesn't crack. So now this juicer, hands down, is my absolute favorite juicer, because it does everything. It juices well, it juices fast, because it's got an opening that's twice the size of the Solo Star and most other single auger and twin gear juicers. So you can shove produce through really fast, and you can juice in a third of the time at least. I was actually on a retreat recently doing a lot of juicing with other people, and we had the Solo Star going and we had this Omega Vert going, and it was amazing. In 10 minutes we got done what it took a half an hour to do with the Solo Star. And so even though the Omega Vert is about $100 more than the Solo Star, if you're going to be juicing and you're going to be serious about it, it's worth it to spend the extra $100 to get something, because it has a lot of advantages, which we'll get into. But for me, that was one of the main advantages, is that this juicer, it works well, it juices anything. We're going to show you this. It'll juice soft stuff, it'll juice hard stuff, it'll juice stringy stuff like wheatgrass and greens. It's not hard to clean, and it doesn't clog. And you don't have to play any games with juicing soft stuff and alternating with stringy stuff, or doing hard stuff first and soft stuff last. You don't have to do any of that mess. You just run stuff through it and it juices, and it does it well. And you get really dry pulp. And that is important, because that costs you money if you're juicing day in and day out. My wife and I spend about $75 a week on juicing, and if you knock 25% of that juice away, that means you're paying 25% more. And that was the difference that I was finding in these various juicers. The reason I chose the Solo Star was because it got about 25% more juice out than other juicers, even ones twice as much. And so the same thing with this one. This gets even drier pulp. It does a beautiful job. Soft stuff, stringy stuff, whatever. It doesn't clog, and it's fast. So very impressed with it. So let me show you, first of all, what this thing looks like, how it works, what all the parts and pieces are. And by the way, I'll also talk about the Hiram Slow Juicer, because the Hiram is almost identical to this juicer. The lid on the Hiram is a little bit more shallow, so these parts aren't all interchangeable. Just about all the parts between the Hiram and the Omega Vert are interchangeable, with the exception of this basket or this juicing body and this lid. And of course, now that they've got the HD model, the screen. So these three parts, basically, these three parts are not interchangeable between the Hiram. But otherwise, pretty much everything else is. The base is the same. And so you can actually take the entire assembly from a Hiram juicer and put it on an Omega, or vice versa. You can take the entire assembly from an Omega Vert and put it on a Hiram Slow Juicer. Okay, so in that respect, they are interchangeable. But here's the thing: I can get any juicer on the market. I can sell any juicer on the market. There's not a lot of money in juicers. People think that, you know, like most things, there's 100% markup on juicers. There's not. We're lucky if we make 20 bucks on a juicer. There's not much money in juicers. The only reason I have juicers on my website really is because people that come to my workshops and events are always asking me and emailing me and asking, what juicers do you recommend? What equipment do you recommend? So I just tell them, go to my website. Whatever's there is what I recommend. So this juicer, one of the things I like is it's very small, it's compact. The motor base is not as wide as other juicers, so it fits nicely in between other appliances on a counter. It doesn't take up a lot of horizontal space or vertical space. It's got this juicing body, and this comes with a 5-year warranty. And the Hiram juicer, by the way, when they started having these screen cracking problems, the Hiram juicer had a 10-year warranty, and all of a sudden they dropped it to a 1-year warranty, and I think now it's back up to a 5-year warranty. But my impression is that the Hiram company is a much smaller company than Omega. Omega has been in business for a long, long time, and they've been making juicers for a long, long time. They back their products, they stand behind them. That's one thing I've been very impressed with them about. And so Hiram, I have had a lot of friends who've owned Hiram juicers that had difficulty getting parts and having problems with tech support and that kind of stuff. So, you know, the Hiram now is essentially the same thing as this juicer, but with this new HD screen and all, this juicer outperforms it. So anyway, you've got the juicing body, and we'll zoom in on this, but you've got the juice outlet here, and on the new HD model, at least on the one I have, it's got a little vein in the juicing outlet here, and then it's got a pulp outlet here. And on the underside of this juicer, there's a little rubber, like a little rubber plug. And that plug slides into, that's designed to be able to pull out so you can clean the juicer, but it slides into the pulp outlet, and it allows pulp to come out, and so that needs to be plugged in when you're juicing. It just slides on and locks onto the body. And then the next thing that comes in is this juicing squeegee. It's like a little round squeegee. It's got two little squeegees and a gear on one end that fits down into the body. And what this does is, when it's sitting in that juicer body and the screen is inside of it, those squeegees automatically clean the juicing screen. So as it's being juiced, those squeegees are going around scraping that screen clean and keeping it from clogging, which is a beautiful thing. Now, my concern is that some of these parts may not last 5-10 years or whatever. Again, Omega's been very, very good about replacing parts, no questions asked, and not charging, that kind of stuff. But still, these are the kinds of things that are going to wear out on a juicer like this. Even so, it's still worth it to me because this thing works so well day in and day out. It's so quick that it's still worth it. There is a little gear in the juicing body, which I'll show you here, right there. And that little gear, you know, it doesn't look too terribly robust, so I wouldn't be surprised if something like that broke or cracked within 10 years. But again, if it's under warranty, Omega will replace it, and if it's out of warranty, if it's 5-10 years down the road and it breaks, the body is not that expensive. I'm not sure of the exact price, but it's not terribly expensive. And for me to be saving all that time and money on juicing over the years, even if I had to replace it and pay for it, I'd still be happy to. So the juicing squeegee goes into the body, and it locks into that gear that engages the motor, and the motor turns this squeegee around. And then this juicing screen, you can tell the HD model, at least right now as of 2011, the HD model juicing screen is amber colored. And in the old non-HD models, just the Vert 330, this juicing screen was an opaque color. Sometimes it was white, sometimes it was kind of a tan. But at any rate, this is the new harder plastic. It has, they say, a 28% larger hole. It doesn't look like it's that much bigger to me, but it does work a lot better. And it is a little bit more robust around certain parts. That slides down into the juicer. And then you've got the auger. This has geared teeth on one end that goes down into it, engages the motor gears. That goes and locks down in there. And then you put the top on. And the top has a little knob on it, or a little nub on it, that engages with the juicer so that if it comes undone, the juicer shuts off. Nice little safety feature. The juicer has a forward and a reverse. That's forward. Reverse, you have to hold it down. It's extremely rare that this thing gets stuck and clogs to the point where I have to reverse it, but once in a great while it might. So you've got to reverse to back it up. So then you've got these two containers, one for the pulp. Let me slide this over a little bit. One for the pulp, and one, there's the pulp, there's the juice. And one little caveat with these containers, I will tell you, they've got markings on the side of them that tell you in ounces how many ounces of juice you have. And I can tell you when you get down below about a cup and a half, the markings aren't very accurate. So if you're juicing small amounts like that, use a measuring cup if it's important. But otherwise, these things fit underneath here. I also always use a brass brush that comes with a nylon brush for cleaning the screen. I go to Home Depot or Lowe's or one of these warehouse supply stores and get brass brushes or stainless steel brushes and use those for cleaning the screen. It just makes it a lot quicker and easier. And then it's got this little pusher that goes down into the juicer to push the produce in, okay? So that's the basic construction of the juicer, and now let's do some juicing and see how it actually does. Okay, now we're going to do some juicing so you can see how this thing actually works. And we're going to take some kale, going to juice some kale, some cucumbers, celery, carrots, got a bunch of carrots, some watermelon, and tomatoes. And one of the things I like about this juicer is that it will juice stringy greens, it will juice celery, and it will juice soft stuff like watermelon, fruit, tomatoes, anything like that. It'll juice it all. And it'll do wheatgrass. It'll juice wheatgrass. We're going to juice some wheatgrass. And it'll do it all without clogging. That's one of the things that's really cool about this juicer. With other juicers, like for example the Solo Star, you have to alternate stringy stuff with soft stuff. And if you just run soft stuff through, you get a lot of wet pulp, and then you have to run it back through again. And with this juicer, you don't have to do that. That's one of the things I really like about this one. Even with watermelon, it's amazing how dry the pulp is, and we're going to show you that. So we've got kale, celery, cucumbers, carrots, watermelon, and tomatoes, and wheatgrass. And it'll juice it all. That's one of the great things. People always ask me, will it do wheatgrass? Yes, it will. It does it well. And I'm going to show you one of the things that it will do, though, with wheatgrass. Sometimes it will wrap up around the base of the auger a little bit, which can make the lid hard to get off. But otherwise, it does just fine. It used to be a lot worse before the HD model came out. With the HD model, that doesn't happen so much. Okay, so let's start out with the leafy stuff first, and then we'll run some soft stuff through. And normally that would clog up a juicer and make it so the soft stuff can't come through. So let me put this on here. Run some kale through here. And I'm not very dainty with this. I kind of just shove it through. And we're going to do this in real time. We're not going to edit it, and that way you can see how long it actually takes to do this. This is a full bunch of kale from a health food store. Normally to do, this is probably going to make about 2 quarts of juice. We'll see. Might make a little more. You can see it goes right through. And it'll fill the juicer up with some fiber, and eventually it'll shove it on through out the pulp chute. It's starting to come out now. As you can see, it's pretty quick. You can just shove it on in. Go through. Okay. It's getting ready to come out. And normally I don't run this much kale through at one time, so this is a good test. I usually do about a half bunch of kale when I'm making a green drink. Here comes the pulp. There we go. And let me get this pulp so you can see how nice and dry this is, and we'll zoom in on it. This pulp is very dry. That's one of the things I love about this juicer. That translates into money saved, because when you've got wet pulp, that's juice that's going down the drain unless you can somehow get it out, and that costs you money. In my tests, most juicers get about 25-30% less juice out than this juicer or the Solo Star. And when you're spending, like I do, $75 a week on juicing between my wife and I, that translates into a lot of money over time. So that's one of the nice things. When you get dry pulp like this, you're saving money. You're getting your money's worth out of your juice. Okay, one more stalk of kale, and then we're going to switch to cucumbers. Oh, there we go, I jammed it. And that happens sometimes if you really load it up. Okay. Let the kale get on through there. Now, one of the things I love about this juicer, because it's got the large opening on it, about twice the size of the Solo Star and most other single and double auger juicers, or twin gear juicers, you can shove half a cucumber through here. And cucumber and celery typically are the mainstays of a juice. They're like the base of a juice, particularly if you're doing green drinks. And so not having to cut cucumbers into quarters saves a lot of time. Not having to feed them through in quarters saves a lot of time. And here it comes, shooting right out. After all that kale, that was a full head of kale, this cucumber, which is real soft, just goes right through. That is a wonderful thing. Okay. Shove that down there. Now I'm going to shove some carrots through. Hard stuff. Let's see how it does with the carrots. And usually I'll do about 2 carrots at a time. Again, that pulp, let me show you that pulp. It is so dry. That is just amazing. It's very dry pulp. All this pulp is really dry. That saves you money. You're getting more juice for your money. Okay. And you can see there's quite a bit of pulp. We're going through a lot of produce here. Let me turn this off for a second. I'm going to dump this pulp. Okay. Let's keep going. Now I'm going to do celery. This is the test. Celery always clogs juicers up. Celery used to clog the 330, the non-HD model, the previous model to this. Celery used to clog it up really badly. And I thought I was going to have to give a poor review of that juicer. Unfortunately, Omega came out with this new HD model, which works way, way better. And you can see in that little bit of time, we've just filled up about 4.5 cups. Okay, let me turn this off, and I am going to put this into a pitcher and keep going. Okay, now let's keep going. So there's 4 cups of juice in that little bit of time. Now let's do celery. Keep going with the celery. Again, really nice dry pulp. I'll feed some more through here. Grab some of that pulp so you can see it. That is a lovely thing. Look at that. It's like a little brick. It's so dry and so compact. That is good news. Shove this on through. Usually when I make juice, celery and cucumber are my bases. Celery is less expensive than cucumber, and so you can get celery pretty inexpensively and make a base of your juice out of that. Okay, now we're going to do watermelon and tomatoes, very soft stuff. After all that fiber shoving through there, normally most juicers, the screen gets all clogged up with the fiber and it doesn't juice soft stuff. But we're going to run watermelon through there after all of that. And I'm going to run through with the rind on it. And I'll just show you, once we get some watermelon coming through, I'll do some without the rind so you can see the rind isn't what's pushing it through. Normally I don't juice watermelon with my green drinks. I'm just doing this for purposes of the demonstration. There we go. Watermelon's coming through. Again, very dry pulp. Okay? Very dry pulp. Now there's a lot of rind in there. Let's do some without the rind. I'll just peel some of this rind off here and show you. Just shoving plain old watermelon through. No rind. Let me get a knife too. Cut some of this off. Okay, there's some watermelon that just came through. Again, that's watermelon, and it's like a little rope. It's so tight. That's amazing. For watermelon to juice that well, that is amazing. Okay, so I'll finish up with the rest of this watermelon, and then we're going to move on to really soft tomatoes. In my old juicer, tomatoes would always come out just like mush. And of course the pulp would be very, very wet. Okay, now I'm going to empty this out again. Here we've got, this is 8 cups of juice. Okay, in that amount of time we've done 8 cups of juice. I'm making a mess. There we go. Alright, that's almost 2 quarts already. Actually that is 2 quarts. So, tomatoes. Nice and soft and mushy. Okay. Okay. And here we go. Even with all that stuff, look at that. That's unbelievable. Ropes of tomato pulp. That's good dry pulp. That's amazing. Those tomatoes are really soft. Okay, now, to the coup de grace. Everybody always asks, will it, yeah, but will it do wheatgrass? Yes, it will do wheatgrass. After all that stuff, shove some wheatgrass down in here. Okay. I'll tell you what, I'm going to pour that out because I'm going to drink this, and I like drinking wheatgrass by itself. Okay. Let's just shove a bunch of it down in here and see what happens. Nice, fibrous, green wheatgrass. Shove a big chunk of it in there and see what happens. You can see we got juice coming out. The fiber stuff, the pulp will back up a little bit and then it'll push through. There we go. And we've already got about 4 ounces of wheatgrass juiced so far. Let's go ahead and do most of this bag. Okay. Okay, here it comes. Getting ready to come out of the pulp chute. There it goes. And that is unbelievably dry. There we go. Okay. A little bit more, and then I'm going to show you the pulp. Okay. I want you to see that. Look at that wheatgrass pulp. That is bone dry. That is crumbly. It's unbelievable. After all of that stuff that we juiced and ran through there, you've got totally dry pulp. That's why I love this juicer. Now, let me show you one caveat with this juicer that can be a problem for people with weak hands, elderly folks, maybe small-handed people. When you juice fiber stuff, particularly wheatgrass, sometimes if you send a lot of it through there, the wheatgrass will get caught up underneath the auger on this juicer and kind of shove it up a little bit against the lid, and so it can make it difficult to get the lid off. So it's not unusual for my wife to have to ask me to come and pop that lid off when she's juicing, because it will, and I'll show you this auger. I'll get it out of here. The auger will get some grass sometimes up underneath here where the gear is, where it meets with the body, and I'll show you the body too. So you can see there's a little bit of grass stuck around the base in there, and it gets up between this auger and between the body, so it can make the lid hard to get off. But otherwise, that's about the biggest negative I could say about this juicer. The warranty on this juicer is 5 years, and it's pretty well built. I think this little gear that's inside of the juicer body might be one of the first things to go. Omega is very good about covering warranty work. You know, you call them up, you tell them something's broken, and they'll send you a new part. They're no hassles. They're really good about that, which is one of the reasons why I also prefer the Omega Vert over the Hurom Slow Juicer. Hurom's support is not as good from my experience and from those of my friends, and all of the parts are readily available. Even if they're not under warranty, they're readily available, and Omega does a really good job of hanging on to parts for these juicers for many, many years after they've gone out of warranty. So this is my juicer of choice. I really like it. As you can see, it juices everything. It juices it well, and it does it pretty quickly. And yet, at the same time, it's a slow speed juicer, so it's not oxidizing the heck out of the juice. And you know, once you break the cell walls of those plants, they start oxidizing immediately. And so you don't want to leave this stuff sitting around. You want to juice it quickly and drink it. So for my money, I think this is the best juicer on the market at the moment. And this is really the one that I recommend. So anyway, you know, I hope that's been helpful, and check out freshandlive.com for this juicer, other juicers, and thanks for watching.